All right, so first I'm going to go over the stats. $32.7 billion paid in child support each year. $32.7 billion. It covers the basic needs of food, shelter, clothing, transportation, healthcare, and educational costs. So basically, that's kind of how they're defining what this child support is supposed to cover. 11 million houses are single-parent households. Out of that 11 million, 80% are women, 20% are men. Now, I will say over the course of the last 15 years, I've seen more men who's been given custody of their kids, and that was unheard of for a very, very long time. And every single dad that I've known have done a bang-up job. So now let's go into the parental alienation syndrome. And then I'm going to turn the floor over to you all and y'all can talk. Parental alienation syndrome, I didn't know was a thing. Duane, you actually sent me an article on this. I did read the article. I knew sometimes parents were alienated, but I didn't know there was an actual syndrome for that. So basically what that is one parent is turning the kids against the other parent. They're making the child choose whether or not they want to see their parent. They're not giving the other parent access to the child's medical records or anything dealing with the school or anything to dealing with the children's activities unless they got to fight for it. They're telling the kids, that because of the divorce, this is why we can't do this or this is why we can't have this. Anything that goes wrong is because of the other parent. And then they don't let the parents see their kids. That all kind of encompasses parental alienation. Duane, since you sent this article to me, I'm going to give you the floor to talk about those two topics and then we'll bring in Charles.
Okay, thank you. So with parental alienation, the syndrome is the effect that the children will have from the acts of this parent who is alienating the child and making the father alienated from the children. These acts can go from mild to very aggressive. So much as not allowing the child to recognize the let's just use father. In this instance, not recognizing the father as the father. He no longer is allowed free access. The child can no longer call the father dad, daddy, father, or anything of that nature. They use the first name basis of that parent, which breaks the line of definition from father to child. Restricting visitation, as you mentioned, making visitation very difficult, doing everything they can to block visitation, and then share with the child the reason that is because the father doesn't love them or anything of that nature. Telling the child all kinds of things about the divorce, making them feel, regretful of things that have happened and it's the other parent's fault and all these things that just drive a wedge. One of the things I use as a relatable story is we have a group of girls. And girl A doesn't like girl B, and there's just a circle of friends. So she doesn't want girl B to come around, and all of her other girlfriends, if they associate with girl B, she will make them feel bad. If you like her or if you associate with her, then you're not my friend. So if we can take that relation and put it in a parental situation, it's the exact same thing, except that instead of just being a girlfriend, this person has total control over the child. They can implement their feelings into an ingrained memory that child will have, something that the other person never did. But because they're taught this, they will believe these things. And then that will continue all the way into adulthood. And that causes all kinds of relationship problems with the child when they go to get in relationships, trust issues, and a whole host of things. And those combination of bad effects is what will cause the syndrome. So if you think of AIDS, that syndrome is all those symptoms that make up the immune deficiency. So the parental alienation syndrome is all of these bad effects that a child will have, sometimes lifelong, that create this syndrome.
I think as parents, we don't realize that the kids are also going through this divorce process along with us. It's equally, if not more, painful to them because all of the stability that they've known is now gone and they didn't see the process coming. They just know one day mom no longer lived with dad or dad left. That's already confusing to them. And then you throw in, now I have to choose who I like more. Of course, they're going to have life issues. I mean, they're not going to be well.
Absolutely. So the divorce and the breakup of the family is the fire the fire that destroys that family and that family structure. The gasoline on that fire is the American court system, the greed of some lawyers. If they cause a lot of fighting within the family, that extends the divorce, and that increases what that lawyer can get paid. The more arguing, the more distrust, the more disruption there is in that divorce, that lawyer will get paid more. The judges, however, are elected officials. Those lawyers may be involved with the reelection of that judge. And even sometimes these lawyers sometimes can be in cahoots with one another, because if this continues, they can both make money. And that causes the divorce to drag out. That causes a lot of hardship with the divorce. And with that hardship and bad feelings that occur, that adds onto the likelihood of what we describe as this parental alienation.
So the system is broken on every level. The relationship with parents, the relationship with the individual court system. Thinking about it in its totality, you have to be able to go back, trace where all of this is coming from. You have these young women who are, first of all, they're having children just to be close to this young man. So it's not even out of love. The relations is good and almost like buying a dog, or we'll make a cute baby. And then the child comes. Now, young men who don't even know what it really means to be a father. But now you have these young women who are scorned, and generation after generation of women who've been taught, especially Black and Latino women, have been taught, like, well, you go to child support, you go to the state. So now they're getting these benefits. The state then turns around. That debt is now applied to this young man. So before he even reaches adulthood, he already has thousands of dollars worth of debt. The disconnect between the two parents, we start to dig into unraveling that. And Colette, you're right. There are more and more young men who are filing for custody and parental rights for their children, custody arrangements, and so on and so forth. But some of the damage is even already done because the kids have already been scorned and hurt. And the mother is not even realizing the damage she's doing to her kids, because it's more about her asserting her dominance.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let me come in as a woman, and I know the odds are against me here, but somebody's got to represent the women.
They're not against you. I have a comment right after you. The odds are not against you. Go ahead.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Give me your comment.
All right. So I'm going to prelude into what you're going to say. And,
let me write down my comment so I don't forget.
Sure. And I really don't believe Charles nor myself wanted to allude this. We're talking about the system as a whole, not necessarily single mothers. There are many excellent single mothers out there, my mother being one of them. And my mother didn't get child support, didn't fight for it or anything like that. But there are women out there who actually do the right thing for the children in terms of child support. They're not out to disrupt the child's life. Just like Charles is mentioning, some of these men who are boys who are having children, not knowing how to be a father, same is true for some women who don't know how to be a mother. They don't know how to be loving. They may not even love themselves. You don't know what type of home they brought in. And now they are mothers. And they're disruptive. They're dysfunctional, just as some of these fathers are. And these fall into the categories of which Charles and I was just describing. And so while we were describing the problem, we weren't describing the women who are actually doing good with the child support and with the children, these high quality mothers. We don't want to make it seem like we're talking about all these women who fall into this category, which we are absolutely not. We are just describing the problem, and it just kind of fell into that, and we went with it.
No, I absolutely agree, 100%. There are a lot of women who are intentionally trying to get pregnant. It happens a lot in the military because you see a paycheck. So I don't disagree at all. The point that I want to make is women, I was going to look up how many women are in existence on this planet. We ovulate every month. I hate to be candid here. Every single month, all of us can get pregnant. Put us in a group, we're going to all ovulate at the same time because our body just connects.
Very true.
As men, y'all are aware that we're ovulating every month. And this is where I got to kind of step in for women. Why are men still out here wanting to go unprotected with sex, with understanding we ovulate every month? When we're born with all of our eggs. They're releasing every month. So as much as we say women are trying to trap men, well, we might feel a little trapped too. We might feel a little trapped as well, because we want to put so much responsibility on the woman because she's the one that's carrying it. But let's talk about the fact that men are ejaculating in women that y'all don't even care about, understanding that she can get pregnant. And then when she gets pregnant, men act surprised. Why are you surprised?
If I can jump in, I'm really glad you brought that up. The natural state of the animals on this planet, and human beings are animals. We live to procreate and recreate. That is our sole purpose. One of the differentiating factors between us and animals is that we have intellectual goals that separate us, but our natural state is to procreate. Now, when you get a young developing man, sometimes these hormones get so high in them that one, you're not thinking right. Two, you have a moral decline in the world, and that's on both males and females. And so these sexual acts go on. And you say women ovulate once a month. It would be great if every woman on earth ovulated on the 15th of every month. Then men would know exactly when not to do this. So that's not so much the case. Now, the other side is that because when men run through women the way that they do, they may be more than one woman that they're entertaining themselves with. Many of them are pretty much aware of what is going on. So if we look at the irresponsibility, knowing that man, let's say, is irresponsible, if that is known, where's the responsibility of the woman to take precautions of all the ways that she can do to prevent this pregnancy? For a man, there are two contraceptions. One is abstinence, and the other is a condom. For women, we have those two as well, plus a whole plethora of other things that they can do to prevent that egg and sperm from meeting. So if women do feel that men are irresponsible as they are, what could they do? Could they vet better on the type of man that they lay with? One, could they not lay with that man pre-marriage? Or could they take advantage of the many ways that they can do to prevent having a child?
Charles, go ahead. Please take it.
Okay, so the natural relationship between men and women has been skewed. It's been flawed, right? So men, we have been taught to smash everything we see, right? To not commit. You've heard the term that, men are going to be men, so we're expected to have more than one woman. Nobody has taught us. Nobody has really picked up the torch, the real torch of manhood, right? To really show, especially men of today, how we're supposed to be living. If you look at the examples in the Bible of how men were supposed to move, we live totally opposite. Somebody else looks at you, we automatically mean-mugging each other. Why are you looking at me? And we don't just regularly show love. We're barking and telling our women and our children to do what we say and so on and so forth. And men, we're not meant to move in that manner. This is what the word says. But if you're going back generations with my dad, there came a time when I first had the opportunity to meet my dad. He didn't say anything to me the whole 3-4 months that I lived there in that town. When I left, that set something in me. And when I had my first child, I swear to you, I felt like, you know what? This is normal. The fact that I'm not around him and the fact that I felt like that was normal. So for a long period, I had resentment towards my dad. But then I thought about the fact that he moved how his father moved, and his father moved how his father moved. And I don't mean to kind of roll it into kind of the generational curse, but if you're really trying to answer that question, like, that's what it goes back down to. You can place blame on both ends. Yeah, men should strap up. Yeah, women should be more cautious as well. But if you're going back to the root, if we're going spiritual, if we're going back to the root, men are made in the image of God. Women look to us to be the rock, to be the supporter, and women have had to do it by themselves for generation after generation after generation. So now women have become stronger than they have had to be because they've had to toe the line. So now when a man comes in the picture and he's not measuring up, we call it nagging. But really, that's just a woman wanting to be led. I'll leave it at that.
You talked about your father and other fathers like that. My father was one of those fathers as well. Lots of women entertained my father. We heard this statistic thrown out multiple times. 20% of the men father almost all of the children. 20%. So you have men who have multiple children with multiple women. So you have this guy who is entertained by lots of women. These are the men that a lot of women go after. Where you'll have other guys who really don't get a lot of women. And that is the majority of men. So these men who attract a lot of women, my father was one of those. He had a lot of women that he can choose from and dedicated himself to very few. Where you have these other guys who they would dedicate themselves to that woman from here probably to the end of their life. The women don't really go after those guys. Those aren't the popular guys that they go after. And so these small groups are the ones who get most of the women. So that's what I was saying when he was talking about a lot of these guys not strapping up and fathers and things like that. I could relate to that because my father was like that.
So do you think that has tainted your view of relationships?
No, absolutely not. Just as Charles was describing how he was with his children, that's how I became with mine as well. When I had my children, that was my complete world. When I married their mother, that was my woman. That was it. I had no interest in being out in the streets or anything like that. And it may have been because I didn't want to be like that. So, I guess it did taint, yeah. But it tainted in that direction.
In a good way. So the other thing that I want to say is going back to what you were saying earlier that I totally 100% disputed. If guys are going to ignore the fact that women are ovulating all the time, then they cannot be upset when child support comes. And if you're going to put the responsibility 100% on the woman, child support is coming your way. Now, me and Charles, we have the same father, and our view is different. The child that does not live with the father gets the raw end of the stick. And I didn't learn that until I became a single mother myself. And then I started living that. And started seeing that if a child is not living with their father, then they're getting the raw end of the stick. How do you recover?
So I believe if you have a father who will not participate in that child and is not working with that mother, for sure, get the state involved and institute child support. However, the state loves this. They make money off of child support, and that's the way it is right now. If you have an agreeable parent, that father who is going to be active, why not you both just pay 50-50?
I 100% agree with that. I don't think a man should have to pay child support. If he's active in the kid's life and he is really helping, that they're working together, I don't think child support should be automatic just because you're not married. I think it all depends on whether the father wants to be active. If you're not going to be active, then yes, you're going to lose your money. But if you're willing to be active and be responsible for the child that you help create, because it's your seed. It is your seed that creates this human being. I'm just saying. You give us a seed. When you give us your prized possession, you create this human within us. We just carry the human for you.
Unfortunately, we only have 40 minutes. We really don't have time to delve into that particular topic, which can go very deep. Because as you explained to Charles and myself, the women are very aware of when they ovulate.
No, we're
very
not.
Aware.
I never said that. I said once a month, every month.
Once a month. And so the woman has the full decision on what to do with that child. And the man has no say-so at all. Even if he wants it and she doesn't want it, he can be denied being a father.
Then why give us your seed? That's your prized possession. Why give it to us? If you know you have no rights, it's a possibility that it may take your money and you don't care anything about this woman. Why are you blessing us with this seed so we can incubate it and create a whole life that looks like you? I'm just saying, y'all got to take responsibility.
That's not always the intent. I would say 99% of the time that is not the intent. However, back to what you said, both sides bear responsibility. Yeah, that is something they will probably have to deal with.
For me, it just all goes back to fatherhood. That any child who's taught to be responsible, taught about credit, and taught about how to even navigate that situation does a better job. But here, let me clarify with my father. So you asked, Colette, like, how do we undo that? Like, I don't feel like my father mistreated me. I felt like even in that moment when I first saw him and he didn't speak to me, I didn't understand it as a child. But when I became a father, I understood. Here I am. I pop up on the scene. My stepmom, beautiful woman, doesn't know anything about me, and now he got to explain. So for me, later on, I understood. But also, I forgive my father for not being around. Like, none of it even matters right now because
Very good.
It has to be broken. So I don't hold no ill intent. Like, I want to be there for him 100%. That's where the curse is broken.
So do you feel like it was something that you did wrong? Well, maybe at that time, because that's not your fault. So the fact that you bared that burden is not fair. How did you process that?
I mean, well, you know what? Like, as a 13, 14-year-old, it hurt. So when I got back home, really, I didn't care about much of anything. That is the normal cycle of young men with the absence of our father. I have no identity. I don't know who I am. So now here I am. I'm in a world without an identity. Now I'm going to latch on to gangs in the urban community. That's why these young men, we all latch together because we're looking for that acceptance. I've always been different than my siblings that I live with. And I wanted to know the other side of my family. I wanted to know where I get these different traits. You know what I'm saying? What's this unique thing about me, but not having an identity, you know?
You made a really good point. My son, and I want to say he was maybe around 6, he had not really had his father actively in his life. Like, he talks to him on the phone, but he's not really active in his life. My son has his father's last name. And when I kind of saw that his dad wasn't really going to be active, I kept wanting to get my son to have my last name before he started school. So it had to be 4 or 5. And I asked him more than once, I want to say maybe 2 times, I asked him about changing his last name to my last name so we could have the same last name. 5 years old, he said, "Mom, do you know this is the only thing that I have of my dad?"
Mm-hmm.
5 years old, he understood this is all I have.
Yeah.
And I never brought it up again. So identity starts early.
At some point, his dad is going to come around. And at that point, he is still, especially if you help him continue to hold that love for his father, don't not make excuses, but teach him to be a better man. You know what I'm saying? Like, talk to him about behaviors of men and show him how to be a better man. You as a woman, you can't show him. So that it does take other men. It takes me. It takes Junior. It takes all the other men in his life to show him how to move. Grounded men. Not just men who are going to say, "Yeah, brother, oh, you're a nice, handsome dude. You need to get you about 4 or 5 women, have each of them give you $100 a weekend." Not that. But showing him how to really be a gentleman, how to really treat a woman. But at some point, he is going to need that with his father. You know how much I value what I have right now with my dad? Just the time that I was able to spend and mow lawn with him and talk about, that was so much to me.
Yeah.
If I can jump in just real quick, 2 points to make. First of all, Charles, that is mad props, what you were saying. I want to tell you that because without forgiveness, you cannot grow. That is the only way that you can heal. You said you've forgiven your father, and that is what's going to make you a great man right there. So mad props with that. And Miss Colette, as far as your son, I am so glad he said something that held true to you because he should carry on his father's name. And because that is his father, only thing he should hear from you, I'm sure you already doing this, is you were to let him know what a great man his father is. All of the qualities, no matter what it may be. If he's good at art, and the father was great at art, say, you know what, you're such a great artist. Like, your father was always good at that. Your father could run fast, whatever it may be. Because he identifies himself with the father, you want him to have a positive outlook on whatever that connection is he has with them, for his own self-esteem, for his own development. That'd be great for him on the tail end. Also, if the father, for whatever reason, does not have a lot of time to integrate with him, do whatever you can to find an excellent male mentorship with him, like the 100 Black Men or whatever it may be, so that he knows how and what it is to be a man. And like Charles was saying, these are things that he needs to learn from a man, whatever it may be, as far as working on a car, how to tie a tie, treat a woman, what type of woman to look for. You can share some things with him as well. But when you describe a perfect man that he should be, that's the type of man that will suit you. And you could be sharing that with him inadvertently, whereas he needs to know what type of woman to find, because to find a woman like you will be very difficult. To find a woman out there in the world, he needs to know how to sift through that and navigate that, as far as a mate goes, as far as career goes, as far as just moral character. These are things that he needs to learn from a man.
You bring up a good point. I never thought about this. When you were talking about always say something good about his father, that is not necessarily for his father, as we as women would think. And especially if a woman is scorned, they don't have a whole lot of good things to say about the child's father. But you said it's for the child, because that's where he's getting his identity from. Putting it in that perspective actually clears you from all that crazy stuff that you was talking about earlier. Like, that right there is a nugget.
Yeah.
He redeemed himself.